Minecraft is a game filled with thousands of unique mechanics, some of these being more advanced than others. But regardless of the mechanic, becoming a top player in any category is no easy task. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my story of how I became one of the fastest bridgers in all of Minecraft. If you do end up enjoying the video, please do consider subscribing, it really does help out so much. But with that being said, let's get into it. As of right now, I've been bridging in Minecraft for about a year and a half, which means that I've made quite a lot of progress. I don't really want to bore you with all the early on details, so to start off, we're going to talk about tellybridging. Tellybridging is an advanced Minecraft mechanic that allows you to place blocks under yourself while jumping. That way you can bridge from island to island in a lot of multiplayer game modes very quickly. I first started learning how to tellybridge around 8 months ago, but I really didn't see much progress until about 5 months ago, so I'm going to start my story off there. Approximately 5 months ago is when I got my first full tellybridge on mcplayhd's short mode, which of course is a bridging practice server. The time I got was 5.95 seconds, which put me in about the top 0.5% of all players at the time. Of course, that on its own is really good, but I knew I still was able to progress quite a bit more, so I kept on practicing and practicing. Over the next few months, I brought my time down from 5.95 seconds down to about a 5.8 second bridge, and then from there, I moved on to even faster times, getting about 5.5 seconds, and I worked my way down all the way until 5.2 seconds. I believe this 5.2 put me in approximately the top 0.1% of all players, but I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, it was a huge milestone for me, and it brought me very close to the sub 5 barrier. And as close as I was to sub 5, I was still very far. The 5.2 I got actually used a lot of flawed strategies that I really didn't know how to use properly at the time, and as a result meant I had a lot more potential to improve, but my mechanics just weren't there. This left me very demotivated and stuck at about 5.2 seconds for months and months on end. And despite having a lot more room for improvement without speed tellybridging, I decided to start learning it anyway. Looking back, this was a massive mistake on my part, and to anyone learning how to tellybridge at the moment, I highly recommend you don't learn how to speed telly until you've nearly mastered your regular tellybridge. In fact, I actually did learn speed tellies a little bit before the 5.2 because as you can see in that clip, I do pull off 2 speed tellies. However, one of these speed tellies was only 2 blocks horizontally, which compared to the normal 3 is actually surprisingly so much slower. The reason for this isn't really the distance itself, it's more about momentum. In Minecraft and pretty much any game in general, obviously your character has certain momentum based on what mechanics you're using to run forward, jump, sprint, whatever it may be. For tellybridging, most of the momentum is found within learning how to tap your spacebar correctly for each jump, turning the correct distance, and tapping your W key at exactly the right time. The 2-block speed telly that I did really slowed me down a lot more than I really realized at the time, and once I started to notice that my speed tellies were very inefficient, so I took a step back and started to learn some other strategies that would allow me to break this 5.2 second time barrier. The first very useful mechanic I learned was the 6-block late telly. Doing the 6-block late telly allowed me to save a lot of the time at the very beginning of my bridge, and it also allowed me to increase my momentum by a lot more than I expected. Another mechanic I began to learn around this time was the +1 telly. The only difference between this and a regular telly is that you're going up 1 extra block higher for every telly that you do, as a normal 5-block telly bridge only moves you up 1 block vertically, but a +1 telly moves you up by 2. Because the +1 telly adds 1 more block to your vertical height, it makes it a lot easier to cover the double clutch that a lot of players like to do at the end of their bridge to save time. After many attempts to implement one of these into my bridge, I finally pulled one of these off, and it brought my time down from 5.2 to 5.1. And as insignificant as 0.1 seconds may seem, I was super happy because it finally meant I broke the barrier that I'd been stuck on for months. And after this point, I began to progress very quickly. Within a few days, I brought my 5.1 down to a 5.05, saving 1 singular Minecraft tick off my time. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but essentially the speed telly mechanic relies on you going 3 blocks horizontally and 1 block upwards for every tellybridge you do, as opposed to going 5 blocks each time, and speed tellies are way faster than regular tellybridging. And at this point I was only 2 ticks away from a sub 5 time, which is something I'd been looking forward to getting for months at this point. And the very next day, I finally got it. The time I got was a 4.95, which is basically the worst time you can get that's sub 5, but to be honest I was still pretty happy about it. I actually ended up getting 2 more 4.95 times that same day, and only a day later did I get a 4.85. 4.85 was still a very bad time for this strategy of 2 speed tellies and a +1, but I was still happy with it because it felt like I was getting more into the sub 5 zone as opposed to being right on the edge. And at this point, I really didn't have much interest in perfecting that time, and instead I started working towards what's known as Minecraft's hardest bridging method. This of course being chain speed tellybridging. The whole idea behind this strategy is that you're repeating a speed tellybridge every single time, instead of alternating between something like a tellybridge and a speed telly over and over again. And this strategy caused me to fail a lot. Several times I got 4 speed tellies and failed the 5th one, and eventually on one very sad day, I completed all 5 required speed tellies, but I failed the double clutch at the end. And as annoying as it was to get as close as I was, I knew it meant I was only days away from finally getting a full speed telly. And of course, a few days later, I finally got a full speed telly. The problem was, it was 4.5 seconds. Using this strategy to its perfect extent, you can get a 4.35 second tellybridge, which made me really wonder how I got a 4.5, and honestly, to this day, I really still don't know. The main issues were my bad momentum and turning throughout the bridge, but I honestly didn't care too much as this was my first time ever completing it, and I was still super happy with the progress I'd made from 4.85 to 4.5 seconds. After that, I ended up getting a second 4.5 speed telly, but for that one I actually placed an extra block which added time to my bridge. And after a couple of short days, I finally improved upon this time by getting a 4.45 second full speed telly. Of course there's still a lot of room for improvement, but I am very happy with this time and I know that I can improve upon it in the near future as I'm learning things like momentum and tap speed tellies. This bridging method does put me really close to the top 0.01% of all players in Minecraft, which is honestly pretty crazy to think about. I do hope down the road that I'm able to improve upon this time, as I know there's a lot of mechanics that I can really improve on, but that is all of my bridging progress up to date, so if you guys did end up enjoying the video, please do consider subscribing, it helps out so much. But with that being said, I really do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.